How's it going, beer runners? It has been a minute since I have checked in or uploaded a video. Let the holidays get the best of me, but we are officially into the new year. It is 2021, so I figured it was time to check in with a new video going over all of my goals for this new year. What races am I looking to run? What PRs am I aiming for? Etc. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Cheers, beer runners, and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining me for my first video of 2021. If this is your first time on the channel, I hope you liked the video. If you do, please make sure to give it that thumbs up. And if you don't already, please subscribe to the channel to make sure that you don't miss out on any exciting content coming up throughout this year. That's what we're going to be talking about for this video. As I mentioned, it's a new year, 2021. I've spent the last couple weeks really focusing on what goals I want to tackle. This was actually a lot more challenging of a task than it's been in the past because of the state of the world that we find ourselves in. Normally, I would start identifying goal races, goal distances, etc., and start putting things on my actual calendar. But obviously, as everyone knows, in-person races, they're really up in the air right now. The video is really going to be split into two parts, like I just mentioned. First, what are my overarching goals for the year? What are my goals going into 2021? And then the latter half of the video, the second half of the video, is just going to focus on at what point during the year, during which month am I going to try to tackle each goal. The first half of the video, like I said, going to be focusing on those big overarching goals for the year. And that I have divided into kind of three segments. Some goals I have that I want to bring to the year that I haven't nailed down specifically, but things that I want to keep in mind to add into my training throughout the year. So that's part one. Part two is going to be specific PRs that I'm aiming for. I would really like to get out on some in-person races, on some officially measured courses. There are some distances I haven't tackled in a while that I feel like I could just crush a PR. So I have a couple of those. And then the third section is new challenges, new distances, just some exciting kind of adventure goals that I'm setting for myself for this year that I'm very excited about. So jumping into that first part, big overarching goals. And I really just have two of those that I want to focus on. Every runner has said this almost every year, myself included, and that is I really just want to dedicate more time to strength training and more time to flexibility training. Those two things I really want to focus on throughout this year, and I think I'm going to do that by kind of devising some monthly challenges month to month to add in some more strength training, some more flexibility training to my running. I don't have specific goals for the year for that, but what I'm hoping to do is each month kind of come up with a monthly challenge, monthly goal that is either strength or flexibility based to help make sure I'm getting in those extra workouts to help benefit myself, supplement some of that running that I'm doing, just to make myself a more well-rounded athlete, help with injury prevention, hopefully help with speed, endurance, etc. And kind of along the same lines, the second part of my big overarching goal for the year is to incorporate more cross training into my race training schedule as well. I have been pretty consistent, although 2020 was a little bit difficult to keep up with that consistency. I feel like I've gotten my run training down. I have a good calendar again with the immense help that I'm getting from my coach. I know I've put out videos in the past about working with a running coach, but if you are interested in working with a running coach or have considered it in the past, I link down to his information below in all of my videos. He has been great in just helping me, like I said, just build consistency into my training, and is one of the reasons why I'm so excited about tackling new distances and new PRs, because I know I am just so much more well prepared where I am now in my training than I ever have been before. But again, one area that I feel like I could spend some more time focusing on is cross training. I think biking is going to be the easiest one just because my wife and I do have a Peloton. I've taken advantage of it a little bit in the past, but I could definitely do a lot more with the Peloton and explore a lot more of their workouts, and swimming as well. I have never been a swimmer. I joined the swim team in high school. I think I lasted about a week, although I know swimming is such a good sport, again, for endurance, but then also for strength and mobility. This is another goal that's a little bit up in the air, just with gyms being open or not open, as well as just my comfort level going into a public gym. So we'll see. I am really interested in trying to work some swimming into my training, possibly later in the year. Again, I'm going to see how these next couple months go to decide if that's something that I'm ready to do or not. So overarching goals aside, now let's get into the specific race goals I have. I have two in particular that I really want to challenge myself to take on this year. The first one I'm sure will come as no surprise, and that is the marathon distance. I have only ever run 2 marathons in the past. I ran my last marathon in the spring of 2019. I was supposed to run the New York City Marathon last year. Obviously, that was canceled. I do have guaranteed entry into 2021 with the charity that I was supposed to run with for 2020. Fingers crossed, everything works out, I will be running the New York City Marathon in 2021. That would probably be my big goal race. I really want to put in a serious, difficult marathon training block. Both times I ran the marathon, I lined up the starting line saying, the race is just kind of the icing on top of the cake. Making it through the difficult training block is so rewarding if you can do so and stay healthy and get to that starting line confident that you're going to be able to achieve your goal. So I just feel like I am so far ahead of where I was where I ran my last marathon. I feel like I can really crush a PR. So I would love the opportunity to take on this that challenge this year. But again, it remains to be seen what kind of marathons are available. So I mentioned New York City is going to be my big goal race. If that is going to go on, stay tuned for some updates. But if that race isn't able to run, I am hopeful that I'll be able to find some kind of smaller local marathon, because I am really itching to run an in-person marathon just to really crush that PR. I think I am. It is well within my ability. It's just a matter of finding the right race, putting together the right training block, and seeing what I can do. Along the same lines, I am so eager to run a half marathon and really push myself to see what I can achieve. I have not yet run a half marathon since I signed on with my current running coach. He's helped me with a lot longer distances, and I've run half marathons since then, but I haven't truly raced a half marathon. I've just kind of done some for fun. Case in point, I ran one in the spring. I ran Rock and Roll New Orleans, and then I did the virtual Team Noon half marathon in the fall. Both of those races I ran for fun. If you paid attention when I did Rock and Roll New Orleans, I stayed out pretty late. I was in New Orleans. I was out late drinking with friends overnight. I also made a deal with myself that I would accept any free alcohol that was offered to me on course throughout the race. This was weeks before the COVID epidemic, so thank God I made it out of that race all right. I was accepting free alcohol from all of the strangers on the course, but I still managed to run that race in a little over an hour and 41 minutes, which is less than 4 minutes off of my PR. Same thing with Team Noon. It was an almost identical result. I ran that in an hour and 41 minutes. That was a self-measured course, again, a virtual race. But if you watched that video on my YouTube channel, you know that the unique piece of that race was at the halfway point. I ran into some serious gastrointestinal issues, had to run, jump a fence, quick run into a bathroom, use a porta potty, jump back out, continue the run, never stop my watch, and still hit that 1:41, little over 1 hour and 41 minute time. Again, just under 4 minutes over my current PR. So I think, especially if I put in the training for a half marathon, come up with a pacing plan and really push myself, I think I can annihilate my current PR. I'd love to break 135, maybe even 130. I feel like that might be a little bit eager, maybe not getting that low, but I do really think I can smash a new PR in that race. I would say that's the distance I am most excited to take on in 2021. Those are the two main PRs I want to tackle this year. And then the last part of just my overall goals for the year is new distances or new challenges that I want to take on. And again, there are two of these as well. The first is one that I am very excited about, and is actually one I learned of from my coach, who lives down just outside of the DC area. And he mentioned this challenge called the 4-State Challenge, which is along the Appalachian Trail. Once you hit Maryland on the Appalachian Trail, the Maryland section is just about 40 miles, and it's some of the flattest parts of the Appalachian Trail. So people who are through hiking the trail often challenge themselves to get through all of Maryland in just one day. Then, because of the way the trail snakes through a couple states, if you add a couple miles on the beginning of that run and on the end of that run, you can hit Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania in just under 45 miles. So the goal is to hit all 4 of those states in 24 hours. This is exactly the kind of challenge that excites me. It's very obscure. It's challenging. It's kind of unknown. It's kind of out there. It's on the Appalachian Trail, which I have always been kind of obsessed with or kind of interested in. This is just an awesome way to get back out on that trail, take on a very unique challenge, and how many people can say that they physically carried themselves on their feet through 4 separate states in 24 hours. So really excited about that challenge, hopefully aiming to do that maybe sometime in April, still trying to nail down a final date for that race. And then the second new distance, new challenge that I want to tackle, I do want to get out and do another ultra marathon. I had Bandera 100K last January. That was my first ever ultra marathon. And my buddy that I ran that race with, we were joking during the race, all right, we did the 100K. When are we going to take on a 100 miler? Pretty soon after we finished that race, I kind of started laying down the foundation, or just kind of hinting, hey, We joked about doing a 100-miler. I think we're both going to want to do it eventually. We're not getting any younger. We might as well do it sooner rather than later. He has been a little bit hesitant to jump on board with the full idea of a 100-miler, so I came up with an idea that I think will maybe get him interested, and so far it seems to be working, where I don't pitch it as a 100-mile race. Instead, it's a 24-hour race, but secretly the whole time that I'm training, I'm going to be training to complete 100 miles in 24 hours. If he's watching this video, the cat's out of the bag. Sorry, Todd. I'm pushing you to hopefully finish that 100-mile race, but trying to find one also closer to his home so it's less of an undertaking. It will also be a nice way to see friends in the spring. And there's a race that I have my eye on for the beginning of May to take on a 24-hour race, which I've never done before, and hopefully tackle that 100 miles as well. They're waiting on final permission from the state to actually announce that it is happening. So ideally, we'll be taking on that race. It takes place in Michigan in May. If it does not happen, I have a few ideas in the works for something that I might be able to do virtually, so stay tuned for that. That wraps up the first half of the video as far as my overall goals for 2021. Now for the second half, which I think should be a lot shorter, is just kind of giving a breakdown of my calendar for the year, when I'm thinking about or when I'm aiming to take on each of these challenges. Again, this is the tough part because everything really is day by day right now. It's unclear what races are actually going to run, what sort of travel will be available, etc. There's just a lot of unknown variables, but I've tried to map out kind of a basis of when I want to take on some of these challenges, so I have an idea that my coach and I can start to work some of these trainings out on. Kicking things off with January. January was an easy month. There's a podcast I listen to, Thirst for Knowledge podcast. If you don't listen to it, definitely check them out. I'll link to them down below. I'll actually link to the specific episode that yours truly was featured on, but I love listening to those guys. They have a great podcast, and they always do dry January. I usually like to do dry January as well. I do like to go into the new year going totally sober for January. I think it's just a nice way to kind of reset. I find a lot of the times when I'm enjoying alcohol, it's out of habit, whether if it's a beer with dinner or we're going over to a friend's house, sure, I'll open a beer. There are so many instances where I'm drinking not necessarily because I'm thinking, you know what, I would really enjoy a beer right here. It's just because that's what I normally do, so it's easy to just slip into that habit. And I think taking the 30 days to force myself out of those habits, it just helps me to be a little bit more conscious about my drinking habits throughout the rest of the year. And like I said, just a nice way to kind of reset at the start of every year. So I'm joining the Thirst for Knowledge guys, doing the dry January with them. So obviously the first part of that challenge is just no alcohol, no substances, no nothing. I'm also just trying to be cognizant of really focusing on just drinking water, noon for hydration, hence the noon that I'm drinking in this video right here, as well as coffee to get myself up in the morning. Really just trying to cut out any kind of sugary beverages. The second part of the challenge is to take on some sort of fitness goal throughout the month as well. So again, this is where I'm working in one of those overarching goals. I do want to improve my strength training, so I'm making it a goal throughout January that each week in January, I will complete 3 strength workouts during the week. I'm going to aim to do 1 core workout, 1 upper body workout, and 1 leg workout as well throughout each week. So I can mix it up, pick whatever workout I want, but I'm going to hold myself to doing at least those 3 workouts each week to again start establishing good habits that I can hopefully carry throughout the rest of the year. And then the last piece of their dry January challenge is to pick up some sort of nutritional goal as well. For myself in particular, I am terrible at finding new recipes. I'm also terrible at offering to cook in my apartment. My wife usually handles a lot of the cooking. I know I can pick up more slack, so I'm challenging myself to seek out some new healthy recipes when available, and again, trying to pick 1 meal each week. So January is the easy month. That one's out of the way. Pretty organized, lots of goals, lots of challenges to take on. February, very much up in the air. I want to bring flexibility focus specifically to February, so I'm sure I'll come up with some kind of stretching goal, yoga probably, and also thinking about incorporating meditation as well. Since I'm doing strength training focus in January, I figure I can come up with challenges that will focus on recovery in February, because that's another area that I could really do some improvement on in all of my race training. So February, very open, but that's kind of the theme that I'm thinking about incorporating. As we get into March, we start to get into some more specific goals. I think March is probably the earliest I would consider taking on the half marathon if I want to do kind of that soft PR attempt at the half marathon to gauge where my ability is at, so that I can start setting more serious goals for a more difficult attempt later in the year, sometime in the fall. Moving into April, April 3rd is actually the only official race that I am currently registered for, and that is the Hot Chocolate Philadelphia 15K. It is a virtual race this year. This will be my third year taking on the race. race. I love the Hot Chocolate Race Series, and even as a virtual event, I think they do an incredible job motivating runners, keeping runners engaged to try to emulate as much of the in-person experience as possible. You get a medal, hoodie, bib, all that stuff, but the biggest part about the Hot Chocolate Race Series is the treats and the goodies that you get when you cross the finish line. So they're also sending you their quintessential hot chocolate, some of their chocolate, some of the treats that you usually get to dip into the melted chocolate post-race. Last year, they also did a virtual post-race party as well. Again, just trying to think outside the box, come up with creative ways to not just offer a virtual race that you can run, but offer a virtual experience to help motivate you and keep you engaged. So I'll be taking on that race again this year. And then likely later is April is when my coach and I will hopefully aim to take on the 4-state challenge. Again, we're finalizing the date, but I'm hoping for middle of to end of April. I think that'll be a good sort of informal, fun challenge that could also be a training run to hopefully help prepare me for that 24-hour run that I'm looking to do in May. So that obviously transitions me right into May. Early May, May 7th is going to be that 24-hour challenge. Again, very up in the air. They haven't opened registration yet. They're still waiting on state certification or state authorization to be able to run the race. Fingers crossed it's going to go through. We'll keep an eye out. As soon as it does, I will definitely be registering for that race. If that doesn't work, I have a backup plan in the works that I'm almost just as excited about. It would take a lot more organization on my part, but could be a lot of fun. And that tackles the majority of kind of my specific plans throughout the year. Through the summer, I usually don't come up with any specific goals through the summer. It gets so hot. I don't want to pick any kind of PRs, take on new challenges or anything like that. I just want to get through training, use those months to build towards the fall running season. The only other goals that I would have is as we get through the summer into September. September is probably the month if I want to pick a difficult half marathon to aim for. September is probably the month that I'm looking at. If I can't make that happen in September, maybe looking for October again, give some time for it to cool off a little bit more. And then November, moving into November 7th is when that New York City Marathon is going to happen. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that would be my huge goal race of the year. Have never run the New York City Marathon before and would just be so excited to take on a race of that magnitude. No matter what it looks like with all of the regulations or restrictions they may have to put in, I'm sure they'll blow it out of the park if they're able to put it on. So keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that that's able to happen this year because I just think it would be an incredible race. But again, we'll have some backup races in my pocket just in case. This turned out to be a much longer video than I was anticipating, but I really wanted to give you kind of an inside look in my thought process, my planning for the year, how I lay out my race calendar, how I lay out my goals, the type of things that are going through my brain. I feel like it's good for others to see because it might help you come up with ideas for challenges that you want to take on or goals that you want to set for yourself. I also think it's good for me to vocalize these goals because it helps hold me to it throughout the year. And ultimately, I am just really excited for 2021. I think like many of us or many of you, for 2020, I was left kind of floundering. I wasn't really sure what to train for. Again, this was an area that my coach came in huge to just help lift me out of a funk anytime I kind of fell into it. But it was a lot of fun having to think outside the box and finding new challenges, finding new ways to motivate myself. That being said, though, I'm excited to take on some more creative challenges. I think I have plenty of free time throughout the year to take on some new things, look for new exciting experiences, but I am also itching to get back to just some of those traditional in-person races where I can really push myself, really put the pedal to the metal and just see what I'm able to accomplish. I have not run a race for a serious PR in over a year, a distance race. I've done some 5K, some virtual races, but an in-person race, especially of a longer distance, I am just itching to see what I'm capable of. So I hope this helps you kind of formulate your own goals. Maybe it motivates you. If so, let me know down in the comments below what races you're training for. What goals have you set for yourself this year? I just love talking about this kind of stuff. Again, it helps me kind of come up with some ideas of things that I want to might challenge myself for in the future, but I also just think it helps us hold all of each other accountable throughout the year. So just really excited to get the year started. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any races that I'm going to tackle this year, any training blocks, etc. Again, please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, share it around with your friends, and I look forward to seeing you around and being able to update you on all of the exciting things that 2021 will hold. So thank you for tuning in. As always, it's a pleasure, and until next time, cheers.